Hello, everyone. It's Martha Burgess Novak. I'm so glad to be talking with you today. We are in a series right now, and this is part 2 of the series of the 4 pillars of how to have a happy new year. We're going to talk about finances and the home in a different way today. We're going to start with energy and the abstract, and we're going to go to some very sound, practical tips that I think are going to help you be more prosperous in the new year. We are very excited about talking to you about all of this today. I hope you will understand we had some technical difficulties this morning, and for once, they were not mine. I didn't cause them, My dear husband, who checks everything out and knows all things like this, said that whoever the computer gods of the world are, they found a weakness in the Intel chips. And so they're not giving us really any choice but to update our computer. So even though I checked everything out yesterday, what happened today was that everything was updating and doing all sorts of things completely out of my control. That's why we're starting a half an hour late. Hello, darling. I'm so glad, Barbara, to see you. Anyway, we are starting today with finances in the home, and we're going to talk about those abstract experiences of energy, and then we're going to go down to some really practical tips that I hope you can start employing in your day-to-day life to make this a very good year for you. All right? And we are delighted to have any call-in people that we do. Our guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. And you can watch us on Facebook Live, as some of you all are doing. And also you can hear us on blogtalkradio.com this morning. The interesting thing to me is you can go back and forth. Now, sometimes we lose the feed on one system or another. So I want you all to know that you can play these things back and forth. So if we lose the feed on Facebook Live, you can go to Blog Talk Radio or vice versa, okay? And still hear the show. We also want you to know that on Blog Talk Radio, they have archived every show we've ever done. So there are shows on almost every subject, and if you want to hear about another specific subject that we have not covered, by all means write me through the website marthaburgessnovak.net. That's BURGESSNOVAK.net. Let's do a prayer, getting me on the same page as you, and then we will begin, all right? Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we are so grateful to be here and to be talking to these friends of ours, many of whom we don't even know, but we do, because we are all sisters and brothers in consciousness right now in this crazy old wacky world. We thank you so much for opening our minds now to get out of the show what will heal us, specifically the next step of our release and our deepening in consciousness of us as you. We thank you so much for everything, and we are asking now that we are comfortable for these 90 minutes with knowing nothing, so that the you through us and through everyone and through all things can tell us and show us what we need to do. We thank you so much for this. Saying this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of every person listening in today. Thank you. And so it is. Amen. All right. We've got a caller. So I'm going to go right to that caller, and we'll see what we're doing. Hello. I'm talking to a 613 exchange. This is Martha. Who am I speaking with?
Oh, my name is Donovan.
Your name is what?
Dot.
Dot? Hello, Dot. What can I help you with today? Do you have a question or a comment?
Do you do psychic readings?
All right. You know what? I am certainly an intuitive without a problem and a healer. However, one of the things I want you to know is my end is not just a psychic reading. My end is actually consciousness. So you're going to hear where you're blocking yourself and that kind of thing, so you can work on yourself. But to give psychic readings like other people give psychic readings, I'm not very interested in that. So if I can help you today while you're on the air, I'm delighted to help you, no problem. But the end result is different for me and for somebody who's giving you a psychic reading. It's over in an hour. I'm very invested in everybody's life that calls in, and all my clients and the people I lecture. And I'm interested in their potential, and I'm interested in them achieving that, which is all about consciousness and the opening of the mind. So why don't we talk about you and ask me anything that you'd like, and I'm going to approach it, though, through my methodology, if that's all right with you, and we'll see what you can get out of this, all right?
I have two concerns. One is the job and one is the relationship. The first, I just started a job.
You always seem to be somebody, they're telling me, that always feels like that you're not doing a good enough job and that they might fire you. That's not true. However, you're not in the job that you should be in right now. Are you aware of that? Oops, I've just lost her. Darling Dot, call back if you would like. That's just fine. And we will further talk. I don't know why I lost you. All right, kids. Well, good morning, everyone. Hello. We are hearing from our friends on Facebook Live. I am delighted. When you're on Facebook Live, you can certainly write me and ask me any questions you want. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, feel free to call in. Our number, again, is 347-850-1647. So, we're going to talk about finances and home. We're going to talk, these things are intricately tied up. We're talking about the 4 pillars of really a happy new year. The first one we did last week was relationships. The second one is finances and home. Next week we're going to talk about health and vitality. And the following week we'll talk about spirituality and how to make that work for you this year as well. So, I have several points I want to make abstractly. Certainly, those of you who are... Whoops, she's back. All right, hang on. Let's go to her. I always like to take phone calls. All right, darling, I'm sorry we lost you, Dot. I don't know what happened.
So I'm just wondering, do you see me in that job for a couple of months?
You can have it as you can have it as long as you want, love. But the fact is, it's just not a perfect fit for you. That's what they're telling me. It just doesn't feel like you're in the thing that's going to make your heart sing and you get up in the morning and you're all thrilled. I don't think it is that. However, I want you to know that you do perfectly fine work and you're a very nice person, but what's sabotaging you every time is this insecurity that you've got. So what's happening to you is you always think you're doing something wrong. It's a core issue of yours that they're telling me, that you always think you're doing something wrong. And that really must be addressed this year, because you hadn't done anything wrong. This is from your childhood, that your parents made you feel, particularly your dad, that you were always doing something wrong. And you have your way of doing it, but it's not wrong. And I want you to grow past that this year through some consciousness work. And there's nothing wrong with this job. It's just, it's not, we're not happy in our jobs, Dot, until a job hits everything that we think is important in us. For example, my mind is very important to me. Not only that I am a logical thinker, but that I am an intuitive thinker as well, and I have a nice mixture of that. I also am very good at emotional content of whatever I'm studying or doing. However, I'm not very physically oriented. So what happens is that I don't need a job where I am physically challenged. I am much more satisfied with a job that hits those other points that I talked about, and that way I am fulfilled, and then I'll come home and I'll walk the dog, you know what I mean? But this job does not feel to me as if you are being used in all your talents and gifts and abilities. To that end, you're not going to be particularly happy in this job, darling. You're not going to be particularly fulfilled in this job. But it's a job to have until you find something that you would like to do. Now, here's the rub, Dot. You don't yet believe that you are good enough to have the job you want. And you need to do whatever you need to do on yourself so your mentality, your idea of self can match the job that would fulfill you. You understand? So you need to work on yourself a little bit, darling, and strengthen yourself so that you can attract a better position for yourself in a better circumstance. You understand? You're very creative.
Yes, thank you.
You have not developed these things like you should. I don't think that you were very encouraged to develop these things and weren't very encouraged to develop a real practical attitude about your life and creating things and doing what you want. And I think that there is an ownership of self that's got to come down the pike for you. And it hasn't yet. Hello, everybody. Good morning. And it hasn't yet, Dot. That's all that's going on. You see, most of us don't know when we're growing up that we will be unique. We're not unique in the ego, where the ego and the ego child's mind sends up propaganda from us saying, you're so unique, oh, this writing is great, this is great, it's not like anybody else in the world, and I say, yes, it is. If we're working from that ego and that fear-based self, we're like everybody in the world. It is only the journey to self, knowing who you are, finding out this sense of self and creating from that really does make you unique in the world. And I want you to discover that this year. It is your task. It is your mission to discover that this year about yourself. You understand?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the second thing I wanted to ask is that I've been seeing a man. We saw each other a year ago and started seeing each other again in October. Just wondering if you see that continuing and getting more consistent.
He's not settling down, darling. You're the one that's more stable and ready to settle down, but he's not. Now, I don't know whether he will be in the future, but right now it doesn't look like he's ready. You understand? He likes everything just the way it is. And he doesn't
Do you see
seem...
him and I continuing?
Well, it's your choice, isn't it? Here's the thing about spirit. You know, I have people coming to me in their sessions and they'll say, is this person the one? There is no the one. You know, I could put you on a desert island with somebody that you have absolutely no attraction to, and in 5 years you'd be madly in love. It's changeable. Now, I will say that it is your choice and his choice, but he is not emotionally mature. You understand what I'm saying to you? He's not emotionally mature. So he's not a real good bet until he is interested in being more emotionally mature to be a consistent and stable partner for you.
Do you see him and I continuing to see each other if I want to? Because I do want to.
If you want to, I see no problem in being friends with this man. I just want you to have your eyes open because he's not emotionally mature. He likes to play around. I mean, we're not talking about somebody nice and stable that you can rely on unless he changes. And I think that when we're dating and when we're having relationships with people, it's a tryout period, you know, to see whether or not this is actually going to work. And you're doing that. But don't be blinded by your need to be loved, because I'm going to tell you right now, that's not why we're here. That's not why we have relationships. What you're trying to do is kind of putting the cart before the horse because you want to be loved. And the whole spiritual principle and why you call a show like this is about you discovering that you are love itself and choosing that man over there to give what you know of love to, and hence get it in return. There's not a lot being returned from this man. So I want you to be careful.
Do you see it continuing, though?
Darling, what I'm saying is it's all up to you. I'd kick him out, but you may live with him the next 5 years. Okay? It's up to the individual. But I'm going to tell you, you need to wake up you so you can recognize who he is and whether this is going to be a match or not, or whether you're just being used right now. And it all starts with you. This is not about him. It's about you. You understand? Because you don't, you take too much, you know? You're not used to getting anything in return, Dot. So here this guy comes along and he meets some other criteria and okay, you'll take him. But is that really what you want? I think you want somebody. I think the whole reason anybody listens to a show like this is you want more than your ego child's mind tells you you can have. But if you settle, I don't think you're going to be particularly happy. And you're settling with the job and you're settling with him. And I want you to open your eyes. I want you to learn what you need in your life as a partner. I want you to see his flaws. I want you to see everybody's flaws you date, and I want you to choose the man whose flaws you can live with, because we have them too. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
That's pretty much it. As I said, I do care for this man, and
I understand.
Hoping things will get more consistent.
Yeah.
With him.
I don't know whether he'll do it or not. I'm talking to you. I'm saying you better get more consistent, because you are, you don't yet know what your needs are. You're working from a young girl's needs inside of you instead of an adult's needs and what you want. And your life is going to go in the direction of the stability and the emotional maturity of the person that you choose. And, you know, I want you to be happy. I think you need to be totally realistic.
Yeah. He makes me happy. He makes me happy.
I'm glad he makes you happy. But that's what a young girl will say too. Now, I'm not trying to wrench him out of your hands. I am saying I want you to wake up and see what you've got and whether you really want it or not, because I want you to make this decision, something so important, out of great deal of awareness and a great deal of knowing who you really are. Nobody's coming along to complete you, especially this guy. He's not there. Okay? But let's hope that he will change along with you. But this is what, use the next year to see whether he does or not.
Well, that's what I guess I was just asking if you see him at least interested to continue spending time with me and dating me.
Yes, but he's doing that with other people too. So be a friend. That's a good basis to have a relationship if the other person is mature enough to do that. So let's see, okay? Dot, I'm really appreciative that you called in. I hope we've helped you. And here's what I would suggest to you, and I mean it with my whole heart. On blogtalkradio.com, under my name, Martha Burgess Novak, that's Burgess Novak, there is I believe it's a 4-part series on relationships. I want you to listen to that. I want you to take it all in and then compare what you've got to that, and which is what you should have. Let's see how you feel about that afterwards. I'm right here to talk to you anytime,
thank you.
and you can call me through my website and or email me, and I'm delighted to talk with you again. Okay, darling?
Thank you.
All right, sweetie. All starts with your awareness. So, good luck with you, and have a happy new year, darling.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's keep going. I hope that you're understanding when I'm talking to clients and what I'm saying to them, because believe it or not, in some aspect of your experience, it's pertinent to you too. It all starts with the self. That's what it starts with. It's not about him. It's not about the job. It's about you and what you are letting yourself feel, where you're stunted, where your growth potential is, your courage, All right. Let's go back to our subject, which is the finances and home. I think one of the first tips to having a happy new year is to be grateful. Now, you may think, I am grateful, or, oh, that's a nice concept and I'm not, and what's wrong with me, and that kind of thing. Well, I'm going to tell you nothing is wrong with you. And many people say they're grateful when they're not. Gratitude is something you live every day, is something you're aware of having. You are aware, you really don't reach true gratitude until you are aware that everything is perfect, even if it hurts. You see, we all say, as the child's mind, it's not perfect because it hurts. And I say it is perfect all the time, even if it does hurt. God has been with you always, in the good times and the bad. It's just that you cut it off. You cut off this ascended God you are, this God self that you are. Because that's what we did when we were children. We focused on emotion and what was going on in the home and surviving that, even if we had a pretty good home. Because let me tell you, you'll hear in other radio shows that we have all sorts of misconceptions about life that even come from the best of parents. Gratitude is really important for this reason. It brings you more. Let's talk about how. Gratitude is a surrender to something more than you. So automatically, if you are really truly feeling gratitude, you're surrendering the self-absorption that closes the system. So it automatically makes you more of an open system, you see? And the more grateful you are, the more the open system. The open system has a lot of interaction with your environment, so more wonderful things can come to you. And so that increases flow. And flow increases more. Now, flow can come in as a trickle or a roar. And the reason that we do this radio show is I hope that you will this year work on yourself and let it come in as a roar. There's no reason in the world you can't have everything you want. But it's not going to come to you in the way the ego child's mind thinks it should. And you're going to have to do some work on yourself. That's it. To be genuinely grateful. We also, and this is kind of the sister of grateful, we all also need to be happy for other people. We can't feel that we're getting the short end of the stick because, guys, the only one that's shorting you is you, right? So we've got to learn what we're doing to block ourselves. And we must be happy for other people, not jealous. Jealous closes the system. Happiness for all opens the system. And if they can do it, you can do it. Use it as an inspiration. Be genuinely happy for everyone. Now, here's point number 2. Consciousness and making money it comes out of consciousness, deeper consciousness. It comes out of work on the self. You're just not going to get it by reading a book or having the greatest meditation class in the world. You really have to actively work on yourself. You have your whole life since you've been in the womb and maybe even beyond, coming in with certain limitations in your child's mind. Those have to go. That means you have to root them out. But there's propaganda that's being sent up by the ego child's mind that says, don't root them out. You'll die. You won't survive. It's all a lie. It's a lie from the ego child's mind. You see, it wants you alive. That was its job when you were little, because you were very vulnerable until you were about 8 years old. There's a secondary patterning that goes to about 12. But the fact is, now you have survived. It's about consciousness. It's about enjoying your life. It's about having the great job and the great relationship and more money and all these things that you want. We're going to talk about that more, and we're going to bring it down to some specific details. In the work on the self, we realize in our emotional maturity several principles. I've already mentioned the first one, that everything is indeed perfect, and you're going to begin to see your life as the perfect whole. There has not been anything wasted, even if you say that in ego now. Not one thing has been wasted, not one moment. Everything has taught you something if you will allow those lessons to be owned. All right. Another principle I want you to realize is that believing in something, even being convinced of something, is very different from owning something. Owning is what you do when you are in consciousness and you get something. You may have heard it 500 times. You may have heard it from this radio show or in session with me 500 times. But one day you'll go, oh my God, I get it. I see it. It's mine now. So believing and owning are two different things, and owning comes out of the deeper levels of consciousness. And then all of a sudden choice opens to you. You're not living by rote anymore. You're actually making deliberate and conscious choices that are going to change your life for the better. Okay. The next tip, the next principle, I should say, is that only by going deeper into consciousness and into yourself, you find that you are unique. Now, I mentioned this once before. You're not unique in ego. You're not unique in the ego child's mind. We all think we're unique there because we're in fantasy about ourselves. We're not seeing ourselves realistically. That's the whole point. We're afraid of life. So what we do is we choose fantasy instead. Fantasy gets its own reward. You're not going to be able to create out of fantasy. And you have to realize that your divine purpose, your true uniqueness, comes out of your being wholly who you are as the ascended God, as love, as service. Right? That's what you want. But if you think you're going to get there without work on yourself, I'm sorry. That's just not true. You will achieve something. But why are we here if we are not dedicated to our potential in doing everything that we need to do to that end? You see, what has happened to us that so many people don't want to touch is actually our wisdom. When you cross that line from ego to highest self, and that wisdom turns into contribution, and that contribution turns into abundance. There's just no reason for you to want to avoid everything. We're all human. We've all done the things that humans do. So you're beating yourself up for nothing. And it's time to do something else now. And another point. This is a big spiritual principle that you learn along the way once you are working on yourself. And that is that you are entirely worth doing for. You alone. Now, I had a client this week And she said, I am still so needy. I want someone to do it for me. I don't want to do anything for myself. I don't want to expend energy on myself. She's not going to get anything. Now, this has been a fantasist for a while, right? We absolutely cannot cure that neediness until she starts taking action on her own behalf. You're worth doing for. So, by gosh, that's what we're working on with her, you know? Okay. Until you move and you act on your life in your own behalf, you will not feel better. I wish you could, but you won't. Grace comes through movement, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. The grace, the knowledge that everything is perfect and that you are working the system the way you should in a quiet, lovely way, and that you are love itself, and that you have dedicated and committed to yourself as a spiritual being in physical form. That's grace, you see. And your life will reveal its gracefulness. Grace is through movement. Just like an athlete would benefit from grace once he moves and works out. She moves and works out. You understand? Good. You know, it's been real interesting. I want to address fantasy and how we're going to talk about that for a little bit. For some reason, I have told this story 2 or 3 times this week to clients that go, oh, well, when they have been doing something similar, so I'm going to pass it on to you. If you've listened to me before, you know that I was an actor. I see I have some calls, too. Let me just tell this quick story, and then I'm coming to the calls, okay? So you hold on just a little bit. I'll be right with you. And so I was an actor, and I had nice success, particularly in several things, but in one particular role, which was the unsinkable Molly Brown. I was playing Molly Brown. And in this show, Molly has never had money. She comes from nothing, right? She marries this adorable man named Johnny Brown, who just adores her, and he strikes it rich with gold in Colorado. And they get filthy rich. Well, Molly, who's really caught up in her issues of having nothing, just goes wild with all the wealth and pretense, right? But she can't be accepted by society. So she goes to Europe, she and Johnny, and she's just the toast over there. They you know, this crude little thing is very funny and dear and different and exotic, and, you know, she's much more popular there than she is in her own country. Johnny is a good mountain man and a solid and a sweet man with principles in place. And he doesn't like the pretense. And he says, come on home, Molly, let's go home. And she says, no, absolutely not. These are my people. No, I'm not going home where I was hurt. So they have this big fight. And she tells him he can just leave, and he does, and comes back to the United States. So without Johnny, she finds her life is pretty empty, but that relationship, she thinks, is obviously over. So at one point, she decides she's going to come home to her father because she's just defeated. And that's where she feels, anyway. Unfortunately, she books passage on the Titanic. Now, this is a true story, this part. And it sinks, as you all well know. And she is in a lifeboat with a lot of other people. They are absolutely hysterical. She fires a gun several times to get their attention. By the way, stage guns hardly ever fire. So I had to scream over this, the noise that everybody was making in the boat. And by sheer force of will, Molly gets control of that boat and tells everybody she's unsinkable, and so are they, and by God, they're going to get home, right? And they do. So she gets home, and she goes to her dad's place, and he welcomes her home, and she's exhausted, you can imagine. So she goes on up to her room and leaves the door open to the hall, and she sits down on the bed, and she's lost everything. She just barely made it out alive. About the only thing she's got is her life, so she thinks, and she takes off her hat, and she hears something. Standing behind the door that is slowly closing now is Johnny. And she jumps up, she can hardly believe it, and rushes into his arms, and she says, "Oh, Johnny, take me home." And he picks her up in his arms and carries her out the door, and I always had to pull my foot in because I would have knocked the scenery, and the room would have gone like that, the flat. Now, what I want to tell you is that's a fantasy. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen to any of us. Okay? Because the only person standing behind that door in reality is you. And you better do something about it to save yourself, to have a nice life, to move on things, and to know who you are. You are standing behind that door. Now, let's go to our callers, and then I'll come back to what we're talking about. Hang on just a minute. Hi, this is the 773 Exchange, and you're talking to Martha. To whom am I speaking?
God bless you, Martha. This is Reverend Green, and enjoying your show, darling. How you doing today?
Well, I'm fine, Reverend Green. How are you doing?
Oh, beautiful. I tell folks like Tony Tiger, I just feel great. And hearing your show.
I love that.
Your show, and hearing your positive input is just more inspiring. You know, teaching people self-perseverance is very important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tell folks oftentimes, man, you have to toot your own horn sometimes.
Well, you
because
do.
If you don't, you're worrying about outside folks.
You know, I agree with you. And it's interesting because we can toot our horns from the ego and nobody likes us. We can become real narcissists. Or we can really know who we are as spiritual beings in physical forms, and we can just simply say where we're coming from. And what we've done and that kind of thing. And that is what we're all trying to achieve. It's like we stand in who we are, without all the pretense and the artificiality on top of it. And just like Molly Brown, it takes us a while to get there sometimes. But that is a very good point that you bring up, Reverend Green. Absolutely. Where is 773, darling? Where are you from?
I'm sorry, I'm Reverend Green out of Chicago, Illinois, and I'm a member of Don Jr., CEO of the winning team. And we just a bunch of positive Elite 300 who are really promoting this thing about God's love. It's very important to teach folks to overlook the outside negativities and focus on your agenda. And the agenda of life is perseverance, and then once you get your program in order, bless the next man.
Oh, you are so right. Yeah.
That we understand that anybody, my life, Martha, has been an up and down. Oh, by the way, I went on your website and seen your picture. Boy, you're pretty as pie.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you, love.
I learned through my life, Martha, that I've had some ups and downs in my life. I'm 57. I've been up, down, up, down. So it helped me to understand that other folks' disposition could be me. So when I see someone down, what I do is I put myself in that man's shoes because I've been there, and it inspires me to treat him how I would want to be treated when and if it was me.
That's marvelous. Yes, that absolutely is right. We're all one, but we're not born into the world knowing that except in an undeveloped state. It really is our journey to opening the mind where we go, no, we really are one. All of us are in this together. And, I love hearing you talk about that. And we do need to, I have it in some of my notes that you've jumped ahead, smart man that you are, wise being that you are. We must be happy for the next person. We must give it away when it becomes the smart thing to do. Now, I also know that there are people that are just so self-sacrificial, by the way, which is an issue, that they give everything away before they can afford to give it away. So that's not good either. It's kind of the other end of the stick, and so we have to be practical and live in the world, but I am all for generosity and contribution, and it makes the world go around, and oddly enough, it brings us more, doesn't it?
That's correct. That's correct. The Bible says it's to love your neighbor, but it said as yourself. It didn't say love your neighbor in place of yourself.
That's right.
So you're supposed to love your neighbor like you love yourself first.
That's right.
Love your neighbor as you love yourself. First you got to fall in love with that man in the mirror.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, you were darling. I'm crazy about you.
Well, I'm trying to turn from your picture here because it's so pretty. It's just gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm not so gorgeous right now. I didn't know when I'd get another haircut, and they sheared me bald, so I don't have as much hair right now. It's so short, but it'll grow. That's the least of my problems right now. So
the personality, man, the personality outshines the appearance in everybody.
Oh.
I love a person with a positive personality, and your personality is just bumping over.
Well, so is yours, sir. I'm so glad that we've met. I'm just thrilled. Please call in any time. I have a feeling we're already friends. You just are dear and sweet and wise and kind, and I'm so glad. I really support your mission out there in Chicago.
Oh, well, bless your heart. I got a video out on YouTube. We got a lot of killing here in Chicago and foolishness. And my video is red, green. It's all for you, Lord, because all the work that we do is for God.
Yes, absolutely.
And it depicts me out in the streets with our little head-on guys who have problems. The ones that you just mentioned that we shouldn't overlook. Mm-hmm. It should affect us. When I drive down the street and see someone with a sign, my heart grieves because I understand that was and could be me.
Yes.
So then I say, wait a minute, man. I wouldn't want somebody to blow the horn and tell me to get out the way. No,
yes.
That man is crying out, man down on this short 78, 90-year life journey. Why can't we help him?
I agree with you 100%, and you're reminding me of something that happened to me 45 years ago. And it was a huge lesson to me. One of the things I think that has happened to me is I may be clueless, but I sure do recognize the truth when it comes by. I'm trying to listen to more. So I was a young girl, and I was in a car with a girlfriend of mine that I had gone to high school with. And we pulled up to some sort of intersection downtown. This was in downtown Atlanta. And someone who was with a sign, homeless, came over and asked for money. And she opened her bag and gave him money. And I said to her at the time, because this was my awareness level at the time, darling, that's very sweet of you, but he's probably just going to go drink it up. And she said, one of the wisest things I ever heard, she said, Martha, my job is to give him the money. What he does with it is his job. And I went, oh my gosh, and I heard it. It was like, I define myself as a nice person, as generous, as loving or not, and he defines himself as what he is, and they're two different things. And that was a huge lesson to me. And I just, these days, if you ask for it, by gosh, I'll give you whatever I have, so...
I love that. She taught you a life lesson.
She taught me a huge lesson. Yes, she really did.
A lot of people become judgmental. He's gonna go do that. Well, what are you, psychic? You don't know what this man gonna do, but God blessed you with the thought and compassion to help your brother. Man, help him and let him deal with God when he do it.
That's absolutely right.
You did your part.
I have been dealing with a situation where a dear friend of mine is passing, and she has a very rare disease, Reverend Green, and these are her last days. And she has, in the past, self-medicated with alcohol because that was a very common thing for her family to do. And, you know, I think all of us that loved her so at one point thought, oh, she shouldn't do that, right? But it's interesting how we've evolved over a few years, because I really believe with all my heart, every person on the planet has a right to live and die the way they choose. And I would not want anyone to interfere with the way I do it, and I shouldn't interfere with the way anybody else does it. My job is just to do this radio show for anybody who wants to take some of these ideas and tips and go on with it, but I am not standing in judgment of anybody. This is about our lives, and there are lessons in everything. And I have realized a long time ago that I don't have all the answers. I just have the answers for the people who are looking for these particular things. You know, that's it.
There you go. There you go. And you shine in what you do, because teaching folks to love and respect themselves, man, that's a beautiful thing. It's a lot of people that don't even understand that sometimes you get in situations in life and you don't understand, you know, like I've been all around the corners, Martha. Like I was saying, I was one of those guys on the streets. I've been in the penitentiary. I come home in 2000, you know, so I'm an open book, but I'm a testimony to guys that even throughout these things that you have in life, man, if you love yourself, love God, and keep pushing forward, you can persevere.
You're absolutely right.
And it makes you a better person when you experience things like that. I never liked what I was going through, but God birthed a scripture, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, but lean not to your own understanding, because God got you there for a reason. If you stay connected, it says in all of thy ways, acknowledge God, and he'll direct your path. And he brought me right out. So now I'm a living testimony that, hey, any disposition, my Father still loves you.
You know what? I feel the exact same way. I always express it a little differently and say I'm a poster child for this work, that it works. Because, you know, my life hasn't been perfect either, and by gosh, all of this works. You know, you reminded me when you said that of a book I read a long time ago called Prison to Praise, and it was by Merlin Carruthers, who is apparently a minister still, I believe. I think I Googled him a couple of years ago, and he's still around. He had ended up on the, you know, doing some things and ended up in the prison too.
Right.
And he heard a voice, the voice of God coming to him that said, be thankful for this. Be grateful for everything. There isn't anything that happens to you should not be grateful for, because it opens God, it opens flow, it opens surrender, it opens everything. And he did, and that is his entire ministry, is be grateful for everything. And you remind me very much of that. Reverend Green, I want to tell you something too. I have a dear friend who is in Florida who listens to us. Her name is Lisa, and she's just written me on Facebook Live saying, I love Rev Green. You are adding a lot to this show. Thank you so much for calling in today. I'm just thrilled. And darling, I hope you'll stay in touch with us.
I will, Martha. I will be calling on the next show. I will stay with you because I see nothing but success in the future for you, darling.
And you too.
Remember, we with the winning team, the 300 Elite, under Don Jr., CEO, beautiful young man out of Las Vegas. And I thank God without him, I wouldn't have met you. So I met a beautiful person, with a cutie pie too. So I just want to let you know.
You know, this is so interesting with this radio show. We are finding that we're finding that there's a network of all of us that are interested in this subject that we couldn't get to any other way. It's just amazing. So I am thrilled with how you got here, and God bless you, Reverend Green, okay?
Thank you, darling, and love you, and I'm enjoying the show.
Thank you so much. We will look forward to being in touch with you again, okay? Take care.
All right. Love
Happy
you,
New Year.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Thank you, sweetie. Bye-bye. Going to go to our next caller right now. This is an 818 exchange. To whom am I speaking?
Greetings, Sister Martha. This is Pastor Don Jr., CEO of the Entertainment Worldwide Network, based in St. Las Vegas.
Hello. How are you?
I am just on fire. I heard your story, and I've been in the entertainment industry for over 19 years as a business consultant. So when you was explaining about how I was acting and trying to get 200 people to turn around so everybody can be in the moment, it's just so hard. I'm commending you for what you do and what you understand the power of the platform. If you're under the sound of my voice and you're in the chat room, please dial in. That's 347-850-1647. Press number 1 on your keypad so that she can be notified you want to speak. But I love your show. I checked out your website as well, too. 35 viral marketers are promoting your radio show right now as we speak.
Thank you so much, Pastor. We are so glad to talk with you. I get just thrilled that we have such a good network out there. And so many of you I don't know in person, but adore already. And you are one of those, and Reverend Green. So thank you so much for calling in. Okay?
Hey, man, I'm right here, sister. I wanted to just let you fly on the wall and listen to the show.
Thank you. God bless you. You take good care of yourself, and Happy New Year to you, too, okay?
Amen. Happy New Year to you, too, sister.
Bye-bye, darling. We've got lots of phone calls today. I am just thrilled about that. All right, we're going to a 780 exchange. I think I know this one. Hi, Jay.
Hey, welcome to the new year, Martha.
Welcome to the new year, Jay. How are you? Jay is our friend that calls in frequently. Huh? What'd you say, love?
Yeah, I was trying to call in. Yeah, I was trying to call in last week, but you had technical issues the last couple of weeks, so I'm going, well.
We have had technical issues. Sometimes I'm in a place that doesn't have a lot of speed, and so that's why I said at the beginning of this show, if I drop out of one technology, please go to the other technology. You can have your computer ready. If you lose me on Facebook Live, or if you lose me on the computer, go to Facebook Live. So we'll do it. We'll get to you one way or another. So, how's your new year been so far?
Well, you're making plans for the new year. I'm just starting my yoga thing again, and just friendships and relationships, and just working on some poems. That's the plan.
Well, isn't that nice? I think that sounds like a lovely new year, as a matter of fact. Thank you.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
I'm thrilled for all of us. I think 2018, while it's going to still be a wacky year, I can predict that. It is going to be a totally wacky year, very similar and chaotic to the one in 2017. I am thrilled that it's actually making us turn inside. You realize that all the institutions on the outside, the church is being questioned, the government is being questioned, our corporations are being revealed as not caring about the individual so much anymore, with rare exception. The insular family, the traditional family is opening up. Everything is changing. And I think the chaos is actually to turn us all into the one thing that never changes, which is God and love. And it's trying to teach us more about who we are as that spiritual aspect. So, I just think that we're in a very interesting time, but I mean that in a good way, not the way the Chinese say, it's a curse, right? May you live in interesting times. Have you heard that? But actually, I think interesting times are marvelous. I think, seeing people change like that, seeing people that say, oh my God, I have to have more. Where do I find it? Is the first step. How marvelous for all of us. And I just feel so blessed to do this work. Really, I do. I never want to stop learning.
Yeah, it's always a great journey to be on when you're actually open to change and also learning too. Like, I think we gotta. I always say this: is we gotta show up in some sort of way in our life if you want actually to see something different about ourselves.
I think you're right.
The innate wisdom that we have in ourselves.
I think a lot of
that's within ourselves.
Yeah, you're right, because I think a lot of people hold back. I'm going to use this word. They hold back from being, pardon me, a participant in their own lives, and you got to jump in there with both feet and both arms and every particle of your body. You got to be in there, committed to being a participant. I think, though, what stops us is a word that you use, Jay, and that is, I think a lot of people are afraid of change. Change is just the movement of God. That's really all it is. Chaos is just meaning that the energy is changing. Thank you so much. We're getting some wonderful messages from people, and I love you all. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, change. Let's talk about this for just a minute, because, Jay, I know you realize this, but I don't think a lot of other people do. We have a lot of people that are new to me. But we fear change because when we were young and change happens, sometimes it didn't feel good. Sometimes it hurt. And so we are protecting ourselves from change all the time. But if you're protecting yourself from things changing for fear, you are the closed system, because the closed system is always fear-based. We've got to realize that change is our friend. Change is actually movement of God. And if we will just not say this is how it's going to be and I want it this way and this way only, we won't be afraid when change happens. We'll cooperate with it. We'll go with it. And our lives will be so much bigger and more. That's just real important. We've got to cooperate with the ascended God we are. We don't have all the knowledge and information and the workings, because we're human. But the God, that aspect, that spiritual aspect that we are, is the one that's going to bring us everything if we'll get out of our way. And one of the ways we're in our way is to fear change. And it is. I've just gotten a message from Lisa. She says world consciousness is changing, and it's fabulous, and it is. But that's why we're all arguing with each other. You guys, try not to take it personally. Right now, everybody's taking it personally. This world is divided in a million ways, and I want to say to you who are interested in having your consciousness raised and are raising it, should realize that this has to happen. All this argument, all this dissension in the world has to happen, because we've got to turn inward and we have to change and do something different. So we're in that process of chaos. You can count on this next year. Everything that's going to happen, just like last year, that you can't predict is going to happen. Anything you can't predict, that's what's going to happen. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're seeing.
The thing is that, but the thing is, a lot of people are calling to action.
Yes.
There's a lot of action going on now, too.
That's right. A lot of participation. But again, this whole thing about one side being right and the other side being wrong is not a good thing. I want people to realize that it's just the energy of the world, I'm getting a hello, dear. Jolene, she says, I see a lot of changes with friendships. I get sad to see friends fall away. I want to say to you that everybody's not going to be on this journey. You're calling into this show because you are. you see. And but everybody isn't called to this. That doesn't mean that they can't have nice lives. That doesn't mean that they're not on their journey. It's just not this particular journey that we talk about here. That's all. That's all it means. And, you know, I say you should love everybody, but that doesn't mean that you have anything in common with them anymore. You understand? So I understand, Jolene. I do very much say go out and find the friendships that match you now. Do that, because they're all around. You're listening to a lot of people today. And I think that's just really important. We all can live longer and thrive more with the good friends that are loving people in our lives. Oh, I think that's so important. God bless you, darling. Thank you. Jay, I am just so glad to hear from you. And you sound really strong, you know? You sound healthy and good.
Well, thank you. I've been just taking care of myself. As you know, as you get older, you got to take care of your bones and everything else that's creaking too at that time. And
I will admit I have a few more creaks than I've ever had before. Yeah, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
It just happens.
But you know what's really interesting? What you say about change is that when that change always comes into something, I find it's usually sometimes it's physical trauma. As we get older, I find out, and that it really has to wake us up and where to go, because you know that fear can really drive us into the ground even quicker. Mm-hmm. You know, 6 feet under than just dealing with it. If we actually did some practice with it, you know, if we had that, it's like we won't. If that trauma comes all of a sudden, we don't see it as a big thing. We'll deal with it instead of having that fear mode of, oh my God, what's going to happen next and things like that. So I just just to be aware of people that are out there is to do some work on yourself to actually sometimes have this plan B or be ready for it. So your physical body doesn't go into shock.
You know, it's so important what you're saying, because I don't think people realize necessarily how important consciousness work is until they do it, and then there is a trauma of some sort, and everybody goes, you know, I'm able to deal with this so much better than I would have ever dealt with it before. I mean, I hear that constantly. I also heard from a client this week, and she said that she was having such success with not going into what my mother used to call the slough of despond, you know, that depression, that anxiety when fear did strike. She was able to now move out of that and not deny it, but acknowledge it, and then do something else that is more in keeping with the ascended God she is, and with love and with reaching out. And she said that she wanted to mention to all of us that when she, years ago, when she was in it, that's all that exists. You know, I'm in my office right now, and I often will say, in fact, I said to this client, I want you to focus on the little giraffe I have over on the table. You know, I have a little foot and a half giraffe over there. And she did. And I said, now what I want you to do is I want you to block out everything in the room and only see that giraffe. And she's very good at this. She's been in class with me for a while, so she blocked out everything in the room and the giraffe. And I said, is the giraffe the only thing in the room? And she said, yes. And I said, well, that's your fear. Actually, this room is rich with stuff. In this room, it got a lot of color in it. It's got other statuary in it. It's got interesting books in it. It's got magazines. It's got comfortable chairs. But you're only focused on the giraffe. So it is a narrowing of our lives instead of the full participation in everything that puts whatever the trauma is in a context of, honestly, perfection when we go far enough with this work. So I just am real grateful to you for bringing that up for everybody.
Well, we always see ourselves the way we used to be, and where are we now, right? Where are we right now in that moment, right?
Right.
And we always reference and always have a story of what it used to be, and now about now. It's about today.
It is only about today. You know, I got real tickled with another client. You're making me think of somebody else. That every time we work, she has been inclined to, my husband and I always laugh at ourselves, say that we have super glue on the back of our hand and it goes on our forehead and, you know, everything becomes very dramatic. Okay. And so she beats herself up instead of accepting responsibility for everything she's done and what she's doing so she can do something else. Because you really don't have the choice to do something else until you accept the responsibility for what you've been doing, right? And then you realize that you're in charge of yourself and in charge of your energy. And while energy is neither created nor destroyed, as science proves, it can be misdirected to something you don't want instead of what you do want. So she's so busy, you know, being dramatic about all the things that she's doing wrong, she can't accept that that's human and put her arms around it and do something else. So I think that's a real important thing that you're making me think of, Jay, and that is, okay, you got a limited amount of energy, where are you going to put it? Because that's what you're going to get more of. And we've got to wake up to see what we're doing. I also had a client years ago, she doesn't do this anymore, but we would talk about how to fix a problem in the present. And she'd go, oh, yes, but my husband for 35 years has done this other thing. And it's like, stop going back in the past. We just said what you're going to do to fix it. You just love going back in the past. And what it does is it keeps you out of being a full and conscious and deliberate participation in your life, you know?
Yeah.
So, anyway, we are in lucky, joyous, scary sometimes, and expansive times. And every moment of this journey serves a purpose personally, and it serves a purpose in the world. I'm so glad always to hear from you, my darling. Thank you so much, Jay, for calling in. And I hope you have the happiest new year ever.
Oh, thank you very much. You know, I really appreciate it. I've been working on myself for a long time, as you know. So
yes, I know.
It's been a journey quite itself. Hey, before I go, and thank you for that acknowledgement. Can I say a little? I made a little poem out here. Okay.
I'd love to hear it.
You might get it or might. Okay, I'll have the poem title. I have to just be aware of what this means. Okay, I'll just read it out to you, the poem. Okay. It has a whole bunch of ones and zeros and things like that. So it's just I'll just read it out to you. Sure but slow unveiled a crisp sheet of paper. Blue streak impatiently waited for the computer to boot up. Sure but slow took a pen to paper. Blue streak gestured with a computer mouse. Sure but slow started to write words. Blue streak started to type words. Then finished. Sure but slow letter graceful of imperfections. Blue streak perfected the letter with spelling and grammar corrector. Sure but slow mailed the letter. Blue streak pressed send. Sure but slow letter arrived weeks later. Blue streak letter arrived at light speed. Sure but slow was gratefully read. Blue streak's letter was virtually skimmed. Sure but slow letter imprinted with human DNA. Blue streak letter imprinted with an IP address. Sure but slow letter was a keeper. Blue streak letter was a deleter. Thank you in writing and 01000010.
I love that, Jay. I love that. And I think, you know, if you are on the journey, all of us, I say this to everybody, if we're on the journey to get there, wherever there is in our potential, who cares how long it takes? You're going to be happier as you go, and happier and happier and happier. It just doesn't matter. And as a matter of fact, you know, I think a lot of people think of what I do as therapy, and there is certainly an element of that, no kidding. But really, this is about you and opening up your whole life and your potential and being happy and fulfilled and and calm and adding service to the world and loving more and giving it away, you know? And so what if that is slow? Why not? You know?
Yeah.
So I so appreciate your sharing that, darling. You're quite the writer. That's lovely. Sure and slow.
Yeah, thank you. I'll send it. I'll send it to you.
I'd love to have that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's charming. It really is. But you are. So it's a lovely reflection of you, Jay. Take care now. Have a wonderful, wonderful year. Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, we'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, we're going to another call. This is a 773 exchange. This is Martha. To whom am I speaking?
Hi, Martha. This is Joellen. I'm the one that wrote in about friends.
Hey, sweetie. How are you?
I'm great. And how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. Just fine. I'm just loving talking to you all. You know, sometimes when I'm lecturing, I get no phone calls, and sometimes I get a lot. And I just always hope everybody's out there and getting something for something. So that's really nice to hear from all of you. Yes, darling, things are very much changing for you. I feel that. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting. I'm a school teacher, and as much as I love teaching, I also always wonder about, my artistic expression, my own individual artistic expression, and I often feel like I put that on the side burner because I'm so busy with lesson plans and all the stuff I have to do for my students. So
yes.
I think that's my biggest concern.
You know, I think it is a big concern because all of us do have lives, you know. I'm going to say something that I think is really important for a Happy New Year, and that is to have a discipline but not a routine. I think a routine is too easy to fall into, and we don't learn anything, or we learn very little from a routine because we can do it by rote. But a discipline is that you're going to kind of make a schedule so that you fit all of these things in you want to develop and do into your life. And I hope that you will do that, because I think that life is short, no matter how long we live, darling. I think, it's a blip in the bucket. And I am so dedicated to people who are called to whatever I'm saying here, having a happy, good life, and that they are fulfilled. And only you, Joellen, can do that. Only you. Nobody else can give that to you. There are things that I call balance points in our lives. They are things that, because of our basic makeup, we adore doing, or we adore having around us. For example, I am a huge people and animal lover, okay? I couldn't do without my good friends and all my little babies. I even take care of all the stray cats in the neighborhood, and I might have 25 crows eating the cat food on my porch at one time. I love gardening. I love beauty. I love color. I love creative expression. I make a little jewelry. I will do various things. Now, this isn't about me, but I'm saying that you have these as well. They are in you as well. These balance points should always be made, you should always make room for them, because they are part of who you are at your essentiality. And they are really important for you. I think that throughout our lives, Joellen, too, we can get too busy for our own good. And I know I, from time to time, have to take stock. And I think that's good to take stock. And then drop some things away, see how we can maneuver our time so we get a little more of it, and then apply it to the things we love. And I will hope that you will do that this year, because I do think that it's really easy to work ourselves to smithereens and then come home and watch television, fall asleep, and do it all over again the next day. And that's living by rote, you see?
Mm-hmm.
You understand that?
Well, last semester I really feel it was like that, and I just felt so scattered. And you say I need to find a discipline, and I think I need inspiration or maybe someone to show me how to do the discipline. I tend to have the squirrel, the mentality of whatever shiny I notice first.
I love that. I have a friend that uses that analogy all the time. I understand. Squirrel, and then, I get it. Sweetie, I'm going to recommend some things to you.
How do I find that discipline?
All right. Well, let's talk.
Sorry.
When I'm talking about a discipline, I'm talking about for your whole life. I'm talking about day to day. I'm not talking about one thing. You understand?
Right. No, I agree with you. Yeah. Okay. And it's as much as I know, I agree with you. I'm like, how do I gain?
Well, let's talk for a minute.
It's like,
here's how to find it. I'm going to take you through a series of statements and questions, and we'll talk about this, you, and then everybody else can ask themselves the same things that we're talking about. All right, so everybody benefits.
Great.
What did you absolutely have as passions when you were like in 5th and 6th grade? What did you love?
Art.
Art.
I can say that easily.
Good. Painting, sculpture,
art and music, actually.
Music as well. Okay.
I'm a visual person.
Mm-hmm.
I love music, and I started taking guitar lessons, and it's kind of fallen by the wayside. And I've stayed on as an artist. I'm a graphic designer and an educator.
That's wonderful. That's great. Now, I think that the arts, and I was delighted that you said that, because you have that creative energy in your energy.
Thank you.
I think that it's extremely important for you to express yourself through the arts. I'm delighted. I can take somebody who's in business, and if we can just open up something that they enjoy doing, that's marvelous. I urge you, and I don't think you do this too much, but I urge you to not seek the great American painting or book or whatever you're doing, but to just enjoy it for the expression's sake. Oddly enough, when you do that, that's when how you're going to be good really fast. You've got a 773 exchange. Where is that? What part of the country?
Well, originally I'm from Chicago. Now I live in Indianapolis.
Okay, so you're really around quite a lot of artistic experiences there. That's marvelous. If I were you, I'd go on.
In Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'd go on and find some art teachers. I think when we talk about discipline, for example, I think it's really good for you to take a class and have to paint for 3 hours a day, on a Saturday morning or something, and you have to do that. But I want you to find somebody who's really, really good. I'm thinking of one person in particular in this city who is an excellent teacher. Oddly enough, he's not the greatest artist, but man, I've never seen a teacher like this teacher. He's just great. And he has all the newbies, like me, in the middle of the room at a long table, and all the advanced people that have been with him for years are around the room. And he will hold up a painting and say, ladies and gentlemen, look at this painting, and we'll all look, and I'll think it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, right? I couldn't do something like that. And he said, can you see that this artist has not made a decision about what this painting is about? And all of a sudden you realize that the sky and the seashore and the little kids on the beach and the waves rolling in all have the same dynamic. Somebody has not made a decision about where they want to direct your eye and what the theme of this painting is. Now, I want you to study like that. I want you to study with someone who is that specific. I want them to teach you things that you never even thought about before. And then you'll be turned on.
Well,
so you might have to look around for that person.
I think I'm curious about Indianapolis, and I'm also curious about film. I wonder.
You know, that's so funny. I thought you were an actor.
Yeah,
I thought you were an actor when you first wrote me. You know what I would love for you to do?
You know, when you're a teacher, you have to be an actor.
There you go. Well, you got actor energy. And I think it would be great if you would go and take an improvisation class. It's free, it's fun. I mean, you know, freeing is what I mean. And it's fun, and it makes you think on your feet. You cannot think about anything else but that moment. And it makes you cease all judgmentalism, because you can't, if you're judging your performance or someone else's, you can't think on the spot. It brings you right into the moment. And honestly, I think that improvisation is one of the most wonderful disciplines for life-changing, that there is. So that would be a very good place to start for you, and then some acting classes or something like that. I think that'd be a great idea. You may find, darling, and I'll say the same thing about you that I said about Dot earlier I don't think you're going to stick with what you're doing. If you are going to stick with what you're doing, it's going to recede in importance. You can still do it. You can do it for as long as you want. But I think some other things are about to trump it up out of your life and give you a much more satisfaction and fun than you've been having. Oddly enough, you would think that you need to scale back to rest. You'll have actually more energy if you scale up and do the things that you want to do, and you actively seek them.
That's the way I work.
Good.
Yeah,
so
I'm like that.
I need you to go dive in, girlfriend. Yeah, you need to go dive in. You truly need to do that. And if you are taking a course, even if it isn't your course for life, give it everything you got, and then see where you go next. Because you're in a great discovery period right now, Joellen. This is a great discovery period that will show you where you have certain talents that you want to develop or anything else. I don't feel like that music, while you are a great appreciator for music, it doesn't feel like that is much your discipline as painting, sculpture, acting. That really feels more like you.
I agree.
Good. Well, I just wish you all the success. What?
Well, yeah, thank you so much. No, that's all right. I'm ready. I'll let someone else have a chance.
No, baby, there's nobody after you, so go ahead and say what you want. I want you to get everything you can from me. I don't know what it is, but go ahead.
No, you mentioned acting. I was actually, when I said film, I was actually thinking, because, I'm more of the artist, I'm kind of curious. I'm a photographer as well, but I'm curious about film. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of happened when... Sorry?
Yeah, I think you are right about that, but I think if you want to be a director, if you want to be do the camera, I think if you want to do everything, you need to know everything. When I get actors ready to go to California, I say do everything. Do everything. Learn to act, sure. Learn to paint sets, sure. Learn to do everything so that you'll have a job when you get there, and you'll start networking, and then you can say, and by the way, I'm interested in this. And there's marvelous film schools around the country, and I'd get some film magazines if I were you, but I would go on, because acting, improvisation too, is about expressing yourself fully. And I would start there if I were you. You may not want to stay there, but I would start there, because it is the expansion of yourself that will lead you on to other things. So I would look around at everything you've got that are there as offerings. I think that while you're finding perhaps a good film school in the area, and I know there are some things in Chicago. I mean, after all, you had Second City in Chicago. That's a marvelous thing for you, too.
I'm in Indianapolis.
I know you said you're in Indianapolis now. But still, yeah, you could go and take a weekend course there. You know, there are some things for you to do around in that area that are marvelous. Cincinnati is a big theater town. So look around, you know. Look around. Let's
All right.
Let's have you exercise that part of you.
Sounds like a plan.
And then you'll see what you prefer. Because right now there's no preference, you see?
Mm-hmm.
Except in the vaguest sense, of course. So this, I think the next, probably the next year really is about trying a lot of things and realizing what you want to commit to.
Well, okay.
You'll do fine.
Thank you so much. And by the way, tell Jay I liked his poem also.
Oh, good. Well, you know, Jay, if you're still listening, not only is darling Joellen saying that, but we have on our Facebook live feed, Lisa said, "Fantastic, Jay." So everybody liked his poem very much. I agree with you. I did too. Joellen, thank you so much for calling, darling. I look forward to talking with you again. Let us know what you're discovering, okay?
All right.
All right,
Bye-bye.
darling. Happy New Year. Okay, now if I don't get through everything that I am trying to say right now, then I'm going to just continue where we left off next week, and we'll just keep going. The nice thing about a radio show like this is we can just talk about anything we want, and as long as we want to do it. So that's great. We've got only about 3 minutes left. So before I'm not going to go back into material. What I'd like to do is just say a good old prayer. Old-fashioned prayer for all of us, okay? And the new year we're going to have. Next week, I'm hoping the show will start at 10 o'clock. Thank you all for letting me start at 10:30. That was just, I had some technical difficulties, as I explained in the previous hour. Anyway, we will start with some of the material that we left off. And guys, I have to tell you now, it means the world when you call in. I like helping people, and I'm delighted to help people with tips and with abstracts, but you're the reason I'm doing a show like this, the whole reason. And it means the world to hear from you and hear what your life is like and take your questions and hear your comments. And thank you so much for being the dear, conscious, and deliberately loving people that you are. Let's do a prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we want to say thank you. Thank you for everything, for these callers, for their comments, for the beautiful poem we've heard, for everyone searching. We even thank you for the chaos that's out there, because it's all about change and growth and opportunity, because opportunity always comes out of change and growth. We open our very beings to be the open system in love that we are as you. We leave the old fear-based self and say that we are learning everything we need from that self, and we are going into the aspect of love that we are. We clear, release, and cancel all issues, blocks, needs to hold on to these things, vestiges and related issues, identities over identities, sympathies over sympathies, definitions of self and roles we played that no longer serve us. We now say that we live in gratitude and peace and abundance and love. Thank you so much for listening to this show, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be here next week, hopefully 10 o'clock, if not 10:30, but I hope 10 o'clock. It means the world.
60 seconds.
I'm going to keep getting these announcements. That's Blog Talk Radio for you. Please visit our website, www.marthaburgessnovak.net. There are all sorts of offerings on that. Please see our other shows on blogtalkradio.com. And if you will be kind enough to like us and follow us, that means a lot. We surely appreciate it. Thank you so much for all your marvelous calls today. What a wonderful, wonderful program. We really had fun. I really had fun. I hope you did. I can only speak for myself. Okay, guys. God bless you. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.